This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome, everyone. This is the June 9th, 2020 meeting of the Kingston Conservation Advisory Council. My name is Julie Noble, and this meeting is being recorded. With us today, we have council members Kevin McAvoy, Lorraine Farina, Sebastian Pilateri, and Common Council Liaison Michelle Hirsch, and myself, Julie. Casey Schwartz recently resigned from several commissions due to some family concerns, and so he's no longer on our council, and we expect Betta and Emily to be arriving at any moment. We don't have any guests, so there is no public comment, but I just want to go over the protocol here. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted online shortly after with the transcript. And if you have any background noise, please mute yourselves, and otherwise we will proceed. So are there any modifications to the agenda? Oh, and the meeting I'll call to order at 6:08. Are there any modifications to the agenda?
I did send you a couple, Kevin. I think you got them.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we're good. Yeah,
Okay.
and Emily did as well. So I think we're good there.
For the minutes, but are there any changes to the agenda?
Oh, sorry, no.
Okay. No? Okay, so minutes, I saw that Lorraine sent a few wordsmithing, and Emily as well. Are there any other changes? If not, we need a motion to accept the May 12th, 2020 minutes as amended.
Motion to accept?
Can I get a second?
Second.
Sebastian? Any discussion? All in favor of accepting as amended, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed or abstaining? No. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Kevin, for putting that together. Old business. Well, actually, let me just state, everyone should be aware, as I mentioned briefly, but I'll just state for the record that Casey Schwartz did submit a letter of resignation from both the Conservation Advisory Council. Hey, Emily. Conservation Advisory Council and Climate Smart Kingston for various reasons. Notwithstanding that he would still like to participate if he could, but for health reasons and otherwise he's not able to. And I want to, for the record, just thank Casey for the amount of time that he's committed both formally to the Conservation Advisory Council, but also informally, because prior to his appointment, he regularly attended meetings for months before his appointment, and so has committed to this Conservation Advisory Council. And I know that it was probably a difficult decision for him to resign. So I sent well wishes to him, and his letter of resignation has been forwarded to the mayor to remove him from this body. So moving on to old business, wood smoke and air quality subcommittee. Lorraine, did you want to chime in?
Sure. First, just that the BARD Kingston partnership to monitor the air quality in the city of Kingston is continuing, and the NYSERDA grant has been submitted. Julie, I don't know if you want to say anything more about that.
BARD did an incredible amount of work to pull together a really fantastic application to NYSERDA, pulling together more than just their air quality division, but also several other professors in other divisions to really bring in the social aspect of it and the anthropological aspect of it, which I guess is the same as social. So I hope that it is competitive, and we'll see in a few months.
Yes. Okay. And I just had one other point, which was that Casey had reached out to me to ask me to ask you at tonight's meeting, Julie, a matter of protocol, I guess, that he was under the impression that, and he would like to be continuing on the subcommittee for air quality, although he wouldn't be on the CAC, and he thought that he could do that. I don't know. He knows a whole lot more about procedure than I do at this point. So
he absolutely can, and I would love for him to continue doing that. Absolutely.
Okay. Great. Okay. So in that case, I will reach out to him and we will hopefully get in touch with you, Julie, to set up a virtual meeting with the fire chief.
Great.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's it for tonight.
I actually have one other thing, is that I was forwarded a concern that was submitted to the mayor from Alderman Coop, and from a resident who lives on Fair Street near the pizza restaurant. And they are complaining, and also I guess there's been additional complaints also from the county office building and other residents and businesses in the two buildings adjacent to that restaurant, pertaining to noxious fumes onto Fair Street, which were also visible when Alderman Coop went to go and visit the site. So they submitted this concern to the mayor, and he asked if that should go to Mark Brown or to Chief Brown or to the building safety. I said it's submitted to Chief Brown, but also that I would bring it up here as well. So we have talked about this in the past. I don't know, this was just yesterday that this came across my desk, so I don't know what kind of action was or will be taken. But I'm not sure what's going to happen because it's a permitted restaurant. So I'm not really actually sure what's going to happen, or what the protocol will be. You know, it's not the only wood-fired, well, it is actually probably the only wood-fired pizza place in Kingston. There's La Florentina, but that's in the town of Ulster, and La Florentina is not surrounded by residences. So I don't know if they get complaints or how that works there. But Alderman Coop was certainly reporting that this complaint and many others have come in regarding this location. So I haven't spoken to the chief about it yet, because it just came through yesterday afternoon, but I just wanted to bring it forward here. And Lorraine, I don't know if you had any action on that location, or where we had left that.
I just brought it up when I saw the pile of wood before the restaurant opened, that would likely be a concern for local residents. I brought it up at CAC, but and it's something that Eli is aware of. I mean, he's aware that it will likely be problematic for the people living nearby, but he obviously doesn't know about this. So in terms of any special monitoring or anything, we haven't discussed it. If you feel that's appropriate, I'll reach out to him about that.
To Eli, you're saying to do for what, and to do what?
To do some kind of air quality monitoring around there.
Yeah, I don't really know what to do, because we haven't necessarily set up any air quality monitoring in direct response to any specific source. But we also haven't gotten repeated complaints about any specific source until this.
Yes.
So.
Well, the other thing is that people's noses are telling them that it's an issue. And as Lorraine says, all you have to do is smell it to know that it can affect your health. So is there really any need to monitor it? What are you going to find? I mean, if you don't feel comfortable, yes.
Yeah. So,
I think you're right, Julie. It has to go to Fire Chief Brown, and this would certainly be some sort of test for the pollution law that we've been talking about all this time. So I think that's the next step.
Yeah, I guess the ultimate question comes down to, can a wood-fired oven restaurant operate without violating our code?
Right.
And if they can't, then they should be shut down. And if
Right.
they can, then go ahead,
Is-
Sebastian.
Is the code specifically complaint-based? Because if I was at restaurant and you tried to shut me down and didn't shut down the other guy,
Right?
you said,
There,
yeah, I feel like that'd be,
there is no other guy.
oh, the other one's, you say is town of Ulster?
La Florentina's in
Yeah.
Ulster, and Little Italy has a pizza oven, but I don't think it's wood fired.
No, I think it's gas. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
What
so
about, and is there another, I guess it's charcoal, but the top taste, was that another one that was,
That's wood, that's for sure. Yes.
that's wood? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Is the law specifically written that it's complaint-based, or is it just nuisance? And so someone has to complain.
Well, I think, speak to that. It's much more specific than average nuisance laws that I have compared throughout the United States, in that it clearly states if this is affecting someone's comfort or health, that the fire department has the right to shut it down.
Okay.
all right, well, do you want to follow up with the chief, or do you want me to?
I haven't seen the complaints, but I think probably it makes sense if I can get Casey to agree to this soon. I'll be in touch with you, Julie, about the meeting in general, and I think it's probably a good time to talk about the whole thing.
Okay.
All right, let's
Yep.
do it that way. And if
Great.
you want to forward me the information from Alderman Coop, maybe that would be useful.
Perfect. Will do.
All right,
So
thank you.
I have a couple things. One is, first of all, that I think that Lorraine should understand that subcommittees can have members that are not on the CAC and I believe don't necessarily need to live in the city of Kingston.
Thank
And
you.
so,
I think you might have come into the conversation after I asked that question. I don't know. Did you hear me ask that on Casey's
No.
behalf? Oh, okay.
No, I'm saying it because you shouldn't have had to ask that question, and neither should Casey. It's just, that's the policy. So, and I thought we've talked to this group about maybe bringing in other people. So I'm just reminding you that you can have other people, and so a good person could be some of the people that are complaining, if you feel comfortable and that we feel comfortable. And then also, this is a social media thing. So if someone is on Nextdoor or Facebook, and just put out the literature that we already have and say, if you're upset about this, here's the CAC's website, here's some information on it. And I'm not saying, anyone could do that. I could do it as a resident. I wouldn't do it as a CAC necessarily, but it's no different than, I don't know, if someone's worried that their next door neighbor is using herbicides.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, this is an opportunity to educate, even if, this is an opportunity to educate.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, that's a good point. Thank you.
Okay, great. And so also the other thing is that we're putting together a plan to really launch the data live. We had a meeting the other day, and we're going to be meeting again next week. And our plan is to hopefully start to launch the data in about a month. So we're really just taking a look at the data that we have so far and trying to understand what that looks like and crafting the message that will be launched in about a month. Anything else? Go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead. I did want to ask something that I was late to the meeting about.
Okay, is there anything else on the air quality subcommittee? Okay, Emily, go ahead.
No,
Right.
sorry.
I apologize, my headset isn't working, so you're hearing the street noise. Oh, is there something we can do just more as a resolution or a formal letter or something more that acknowledges Casey than just an email saying thanks a lot? So,
I mean, the group can propose something.
yeah, I would appreciate that. I mean, if I were in his shoes, I would appreciate a formal, you know, even a card, but we can't pass a card around, but we could write a note and, you know, a letterhead or something.
What about like a letter and a plant or something?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, does somebody want to draft the letter?
Uh,
I wouldn't mind drafting it. Do you have any dates or anything to remind us, like how long he's been here or anything?
Yep, I can send that to you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep.
Thank,
Uh,
thank you, Emily.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
NRI and open space project. So I went to the laws and rules meeting last month where the seeker review of space plan was on the agenda. We had presented to the council the environmental assessment form completed, this part 1, and then the draft of part 2 and 3. At the time, there was no action that was taken besides they formally passed a resolution to accept it. There wasn't much discussion, and following that, it was circulated to the involved and interested agencies. So that involved agencies are the City of Kingston Planning Board, Heritage Area Commission, Landmarks Commission, Ulster County Planning Board, and Zoning Board of Appeals. And then there's also interested agencies, of which we are one, the CAC, the Rec Commission is, the Land Trust, the Tree Commission, the Open Space Institute, and Scenic Hudson. And so since then, I have heard or I'm aware of action from on behalf of several organizations. The Tree Commission adopted or passed is submitting a letter in support of the open space plan and also encouraging a negative declaration. And I found out today that the City Planning Board and the ZBA are also submitting letters with their blessing. And I am waiting on well, I don't know, maybe Kevin, I don't know if you can speak to Heritage or Landmarks.
Landmarks, yeah, that came up at the meeting, and yeah, I believe the letter they had on Thursday, and yeah, I believe a letter that no further comments, with blessing the project basically, or blessing the plan is going to be issued.
Okay,
Um,
you were in and out, but you're saying that it went through, but
did
are
the
you
sound-
submitting something?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay,
yes,
okay. That was which
Mhm.
one, Heritage or Landmarks?
I won't be really sad. That was Landmarks. Heritage has a problem with quorums. I don't know what they're doing.
Okay. I don't know for sure. Well,
Yeah.
a non-response, I believe, at least in the other format, in the other phases of the review, a non-response equals conforming. So I'm assuming that happens now as well. I don't know if anyone can concur with that. Yes? You think so?
I think so.
Okay. So as a CAC, do we want to submit a letter that states anything? It's a little bit funny because we as the CAC put forward the information, but still we're an interested agency. So do you feel like at this point it's redundant and moot for us to submit a letter that says we're in support of this, or do you think it's important?
Do we have any idea of what any other CAC has done in terms of this? Is it, did they submit letters or not? Okay.
Don't know.
I think it'd be weird if we didn't submit a letter to support our own thing, but also it does seem redundant.
Agreed.
I don't know.
I know, yeah. That's why I could go either way. I feel like it's kind of like writing a letter from your right hand to your left hand, but
Mhm.
I don't know. Kevin, do you think, what do you think we should do?
Well, we had this discussion at the landmarks, and it was like, I felt like I was making comments to myself if they asked me to make the comments.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
we could do it, yes, but do we need to do it? I think everybody knows the CAC is the effective sponsor of the open space plan.
Yeah, okay, so I think that the weirdness of it outweighs the appropriateness of it for me, just because it would be clearly written by and signed by those of us that wrote and are the applicant. So I think that if everyone's okay with it, we would just take no action on this because it's an assumed action already. Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, assumed action. I like that language, yeah.
Okay. So that being said, this is on the agenda for laws and rules, which is June 17th. And I will be drafting a resolution recommending or with the verbiage for negative declaration, with an assumption it'll be a negative declaration. And hopefully that will be the case. And I guess we will see where we go from there.
Sounds good.
Great. Okay, anything else on open space plan or NRI?
Oh, one thing. I was in touch with the future fruits people, Barbara and Jared, and I was getting them documents like archival stuff on urban agriculture for they want to present a zoning initiative possibly, and the question was, can I give them the Excel spreadsheet of the open space index?
I don't see why not.
Website, so I didn't want to start taking something that hasn't been out there. And Kingston Land Trust has it, but they haven't shared it with them.
I don't think that there's any reason why we shouldn't share it.
Okay, the reason they would use it is just to look for sites that would be applicable, like to do the sort data thing to see which sites might be useful for for fruit trees.
I mean, I frankly would rather give them the data and let them manipulate and figure it out than for them to just constantly ask us to do it. So
Okay.
I say give them it.
Okay.
Great. Okay, anything else on NRI and open space? All right, Esopus Creek. I know that Amanda and Don and others, I don't know who else, went on a kayak ride the other day on at least some stretches of the Esopus. Did anybody go on that? All right, I actually didn't really get a follow-up on there besides it was a very pleasant experience.
I got something.
Okay.
Some of them, I've not really, they didn't go in necessarily at Sandy Road, but Amanda said that it would be really nice to have some kind of put in Hurley that wasn't poison ivy covered. That was one of her observations. Oh, because they went in Wynkoop. They went in at Wynkoop somewhere. in Hurley, not our Wing Coop, obviously. And then I'm not sure they went to Sandy, and then one of the other ones went in and couldn't find the debris, and they realized one of the bad debris sites, but they realized that they hadn't gone far enough. But you're right, there was not much observed. I guess they had a good day. So.
Okay, so I guess we'll wait to hear back on what action is next on that. Pedestrian street, Sebastian?
I spoke to Don as well about the pedestrian street. He relayed that I think what we all know at this point, that the city is planning on moving forward with alfresco dining starting in July, it looks like. And then they sent around that, thank you, Kevin, for sending around the survey that the planning board was circulating. I was trying to rethink where we can go, kind of knowing that, Don mentioned that the couple of areas being considered mostly are in Uptown. There might be a section on Broadway. And so I sent that email to you all with that text included to try and think about kind of the moment we're in and how using alfresco dining or open up streets to the public could benefit the Black community and the communities of color within Kingston. And so trying to figure out how to specifically incorporate organizations and business owners who are Black into the planning process when determining which streets to open up to the public was the angle that the letter is now kind of taking. I don't know if that's stepping outside of our role as the CAC, but I feel like it's one that still conveys kind of to Emily's point in the previous conversation that these things should be permanent. This shouldn't be a pilot phase, and we should adopt these as fixtures of the community, and also that we should be incorporating the communities of color within Kingston to ensure they benefit from this public space.
Okay, did everyone get a chance to look at Sebastian's suggested text? You sent that around a couple days ago or last week, maybe?
3 days. So it's not too much time ago.
I will say that I was surprised to see the angle that you went with it, because we didn't talk about that. Although I don't know how we would have talked about it because this all came up since the last meeting. I would also say my initial feeling was that is out of our scope. That we tend to, when we're making recommendations on something, even if we all feel strongly about something else, the recommendation still comes from an environmental perspective. But we haven't ever taken really the environmental justice angle, which is the angle that you have here. So I'd kind of like to know what folks think about where we should go with this, and thoughts on the language here. Does anyone need a moment to read it over, or do you want Sebastian to read it?
I was just trying to find it and I can't find it in my email. So if you don't mind reading it, it's not that long.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Also, I have to beg any pardons because I wrote this on my cell phone for any typos. It begins, so the CAC supports the mayor's initiative to begin to open up specific streets to public and commerce. This is an important step in terms of creating a more walkable and bikeable city, and even more so given the current pandemic rendering closed spaces dangerous for public health. The CAC recognizes that this is a temporary endeavor and strongly recommends that it should serve as a pilot, and if successful, that this initiative should be adopted permanently. The mayor's office noted that they are undertaking this initiative to improve business and alleviate some of the impacts from the economic downturn. It is in this vein that the CAC recommends that the mayor's office ensure that Black-owned businesses and person of color-owned businesses are able to benefit from the Open Streets initiative. Specifically, we request that outreach be conducted to community groups such as Rise Up Kingston and Midtown Rising in order to identify businesses that would benefit from the Open Streets initiative. In addition, we ask that Jansen Ave receive specific consideration for being open to commerce and the public with a focus given to the restaurants that have their storefronts on Broadway. Many businesses along Broadway are owned by people of color, and given the amount of traffic, might not be able to have as much open space as restaurants in Uptown. For that reason, that we ask the consideration be given to less traffic streets that run adjacent to Broadway Ave. This is a confusing last sentence, and that can be accessed by those businesses. Basically, that not Broadway specifically, but the streets that run behind Broadway that are less trafficked could be available to businesses as well.
Thoughts?
I mean, it's a very nice sentiment, and I think we're all trying to figure out how we can be more supportive allies to the Black community in this moment. I do sort of hear, Julie, that it's not necessarily your typical CAC, approach. Have we ever in the past prioritized any kind of like EJ health or wellness or anything like that? I mean, and this is also more focused on like the economy, not really health. So, I mean, I don't want to say it's a bad idea because I think it's a good idea. I don't know if this is like the place, but I would be interested in hearing what other people think. Because I do, as I said, appreciate the sentiment, and it sounds like a great idea.
Kevin or Emily?
Has anyone taken the survey?
Oh, yeah. Lots and
Is it
lots
in-
of people have taken the survey.
Is it in Spanish?
The last time I went onto the Engage Kingston website, I noticed that there was a button on it that says translate this page. And I addressed that with Ruth Ann, and she said that she's trying to work that out. And that was pre this survey.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that happened or not. I can check in on that. I don't know that for sure. If it was as simple as translate this page, like somebody else can go on it, right? One of you guys can just click on it, go to engagekingston.com right now and see if you can translate this page. I know that was some kind of widget. I just don't know if that widget was made available yet.
Can I ask a question? Does this involve street closures, or that's what we're talking about, right? More street closures?
Well, the survey, so starting in this phase 2, businesses are allowed to have outdoor dining, but not every business has access to outdoor spaces. So this is an effort to understand from the community what it would look like and what the pulse would be on people using outdoor spaces, which would include the sidewalk, but not on the sidewalk. So like the space of the sidewalk, if there's more than enough space for the sidewalk itself, and the parking spaces and the road. So it's not applying to every road. So it's mostly a focus on, at this point, and I don't know if this is in the survey or not, but the discussion at least has been North Front Street, Wall Street, Lower Broadway, and the Strand. And for the closing of the streets, which would be like Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. And the parking spots would be by request, and that would not be limited to a specific time. And that could happen, my understanding would be anywhere there's a parking spot available. And then, if there's other communal spaces that people can use, like I understand the county is possibly offering to use their parking lot for communal spaces. But there's stipulations. So like, if you use a parking spot, you have to, or outside dining, you need to be 6 feet from the walkable sidewalk and 6 feet apart between tables. And I mean, there's a lot of concerns, and I'm not going to raise them all here. There's a lot of advantages and there's a lot of concerns just from the DPW hat that I'm wearing. There's public safety angles on both ends, but from an environmental perspective, we all know that, less traffic is less emissions, fewer emissions, and more walkable cities are more environmentally friendly.
Right, so if someone wants to just, if you're gonna close the whole street, that's different than if someone wants to take 2 parking spots in front of their building on an obscure street, and allow for outdoor dining, then that makes it, at least that those people could potentially take advantage of that, because if you're only closing certain streets, you're not helping everyone, right? And so by the idea of either allowing some kind of taking parking spots or something kind of I think helps that. And so that's why I was wondering just about like whether or not we need to be considerate of all businesses regardless of if they're minority owned.
My understanding is that there's not going to be, okay, so let me step back. In terms of the road closures, it's going to be road closures based on the feasibility of closing a road. So like closing Broadway is not feasible. And
Right.
that's not a decision based on who owns the business or not.
Right.
Whether you disagree?
I think this is where it gets really tricky, right? Because it's like Broadway is more accessible to immigrants because it's lower rents, right? So you have more immigrant-owned businesses along Broadway than you do in Uptown. In Uptown, you have much more upscale restaurants. And so there is, I think it goes to Emily's point, which is like you're closing certain streets and not others. And that is definitely gonna, there's inherent, I don't know, I guess I'm trying to, like who's not gonna benefit and who is gonna benefit is kind of already baked into that cake, it seems. I did not mean to cut you off though, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I would say that from an insider's perspective, there's none of this inherently is the actions or the discriminatory action based on who should we close the road and who should we not. It's more of a logistics of closing Broadway. The logistics would be a disaster versus like the precedence that the farmer's market already closes North Wall Street. I mean, maybe I'm going to just speak for my own self to say that I was caught off guard with his letter because to me, it's making an assumption that these decisions are being made based on the owners of the restaurants and discriminating against different owners.
That's really good you brought that up. That is not my intention. It wasn't meant to say we're discriminating against certain owners, but rather just the way it's going to happen probably is that certain businesses that are predominantly in areas that are immigrant owned, person of color owned, or black owned aren't going to be able to benefit in the same way precisely because they're on those more trafficked streets. And how could we adjust the street closures to ensure that they're able to benefit from it while at the same time not closing Broadway, which might involve in certain cases opening up other streets, or maybe to Emily's, I think you were kind of getting at it, maybe possibly allowing businesses to solicit parking spaces or the ability to use parking spaces for outdoor dining.
Yep, and my understanding with this is that there's, and again, I don't know how this is going to execute, and maybe this isn't all public yet, but my understanding is that it's just if a business has a parking spot in front of them and they want it, they get it. And if they want 2, they get it. And if they want 6, they get it if nobody else wants it. So my bigger concern is that we are now going to say all parking is now for people to sit in as opposed to anyone to park at all. That's my actual concern. So I don't think there's going to be any like, oh, you're not on Wall Street, so you don't even get a parking spot. And I don't know. I don't know how any of it's going to go down, but I also will say that the entire county is looking at at the city of Kingston for how we roll this out, and they're like voraciously looking towards us to figure this out so that it could be replicated elsewhere. So it's important how this all goes down.
Mhm.
But I don't.
Are there any parking lots along Broadway that could be utilized?
Well,
There
there's
are, but how far can a waiter walk, right? Like,
That's true.
so, it's like by Pupuseria or whatever, that's a public parking area. Same thing by Monkey Joe's and a couple others down there. So there's that. But by the way, Ship to Shore has already uses a parking spot, with plantings and boxes and stuff to keep people separated from the cars. I think we can finesse this to say that, we hope that, restaurants can easily have a parking area, so that that everyone has an opportunity to have outdoor dining or something, and not get into the technicality of it, or to the something that, anyway, to cover what, because we all agree that it is a great idea, but how can we stay within our purview?
I think that's a really good point, and it makes me think about maybe reframing the intention around equitable access to open space.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's the angle to go on. And maybe the other point too is that it seems like, what I'm picking up too is that there's kind of a plan that's being developed right now. And part of the thought process is that, like, well, there should be some inclusion from businesses who don't have equal access to outdoor space into that planning process, perhaps, so that they're able to know that they can take advantage of these parking spots or
right. And I didn't try to take the survey in Spanish, and I didn't look at the business aspect of it, but just encouraging business owners to take the survey would be, as important. And but I just wanted to mention one thing about equitable access to open space. And there's I have never experienced this, I don't think, but people have done things where they've basically taken a parking space and they put like a tree and a bunch of, some greenery and stuff, and they might have it on a trailer even, and they come in and they have this temporary green space to show people what it would be like to have more greenery on a space. And in some ways, this is kind of doing that, because people might add some aspects like planters just for ambiance or to separate from the street and everything. And so I think that would be a nice way to, how could we kind of put that out? But anyway, because I think that's always been a really cool idea, and that even there's parts of Broadway, say, that could maybe still benefit from that. I also think that it's going to be tough for some businesses to come up with, the amenities that they would need to have outdoor dining, whether it's, big planters or outdoor furniture. And I don't know how to deal with that, but.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that I think it is poignant and important for the CAC to be submitting a letter to the administration about this, especially since it's been on our agenda prior to this, this coming up this way. And also because most of the discussion, if not all of it thus far, has certainly been around the economics of it. And this is bringing in a different angle that hasn't really been discussed. So I think that if we can pull this together and do wordsmithing that we need to do in a timely fashion, and know that this would be the letter representing the environmental perspective about it, so a different perspective than others have been providing. I think that there's certainly value to that and a great role for the CAC. So I think, Sebastian, if you've taken some of our comments here and want to try, wordsmithing a little bit, you can either do that with somebody or alone and recirculate it, and we can revisit it in the next couple of days.
I went Maverick on this. Emily had previously offered to help me out with the letter, and I just sent this without consulting with her. And so I would love to do this with you, Emily, if you'd like to.
Okay, that's fine.
Recirculate it.
And do you have a computer now, or do you have to use your phone?
I do. Look at this. Yeah.
Hey,
Hey.
big day. I don't know. Is somebody looking at the Engage Kingston right now to see when the survey closes? I think it's soon, like this week.
I think I remember the 12th for some reason.
Right, which is Friday. So if we could like turn this around in that same time period, I think that would be valuable so that it's timely.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you guys draft something up, send us something by Thursday,
Yeah, I think I'll.
Friday morning.
Yeah, Emily, maybe we can try to find a time after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right, any other discussion on this?
Can I just, I don't know if this is okay or not, but like, could I just do outreach to businesses on Broadway and have them try to get them to fill out the survey and be like, hey, I'm Sebastian, I'm with the CAC.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Direct them. I mean, you can share the link that Summer put out, or, whatever.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, anything else on that? Good work, team. All right, new business. A quick question that came up. So on the CAC website, it has all of our names, and on Engage Kingston, there are projects that are listed, and I was asked the other day when I guess there's some project that we're listed as partnering on, probably the open space plan or something else. And I was asked if the communications director asked if it was okay to post everyone's affiliation to show the breadth of like what we're representing and what our background is. I said no immediately because I wanted to talk to you all, because you're not appointed here based on your affiliation. You're appointed here based on your ward. Well, you're appointed here based on the fact that you live in Kingston and you expressed interest in being here, and who you work for is irrelevant. I told her to not do anything until I talked to you. Actually, I told her to not list affiliations, and I didn't give affiliations, but I wanted to just open this up, not only for Engage Kingston, but just for like the context of anything. I said to her also, I don't think that there's precedence for other commissions saying like so-and-so of the whatever I do for a living. That's not necessarily relevant. Well, there isn't precedence for that. So I just want to open up that discussion, and I'm free to go either way. You all know my affiliation, and I'm only here because of my affiliation, but you all, what's your thoughts?
Wait, you don't love us anyway?
Oh my gosh.
Come on, Julie.
I mean,
Just getting paid to be here is why you're here. Now my feelings are hurt.
are your feelings really hurt, Meta?
Yes. No. I was just looking on the website. It's the annual stormwater report. I think that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
That's
How did you know that?
Because I just looked. I just was looking at the website. It's such a great website. I'm totally fine with an affiliation. Doesn't matter to me if that's helpful for some reason. I'm always glad to put New Yorkers for Clean Power out there in the world. So yeah, fine with me. I don't know how others feel.
I don't want to be. And yeah,
Kevin?
I weigh in with Emily there. This is Lorraine.
Okay. Sebastian and Kevin?
Me, Sebastian?
Go up.
Well, I'm on a lot of different boards, so I'm not sure which one you'd pick. I mean, it could be Kingston Land Trust, it could be Climate Smart, it could be, one of the historic boards. I don't know. If I had to pick one, I would guess the one that's most closely aligned to this board is Kingston Land Trust.
Sebastian?
Yeah, I fall into the Emily side. No affiliation is cool with me.
Okay, so we have not unanimous yeses, so we're gonna go with unanimous nos.
Okay,
Um,
sounds good.
So thank you everyone for weighing in on that, and I appreciate your consideration of it.
I didn't want to tick anything, like if, Betta and Kevin want to have that listed, could it just be done that I don't have mine? No, it has to be unanimous.
Doesn't matter to me anyway. I mean,
It's
Okay.
it's weird.
Find out
I think it's
when.
weird to say to have some and not others. And again, my default was it doesn't matter what your affiliations are. If we were more than advisory, if we were regulatory in some way, and people wanted to say like, well, what background did so and so have that they're able to sit here and make those regulatory decisions, I think that's different. We're advisory, so you could be a professional in the environmental field, or you could be someone who just moved to Kingston and wants to hang out with others. So like, I don't think it matters.
Cool.
Okay. Communications, anyone have any? We don't have any communications. Announcements, events. I did want to make one. I just circulated it, but there's a best practices webinar for local environmental review. That's coming up on the 17th from 12 to 1. It's a webinar put on by DEC, I presume. I actually didn't really look at it. So if anyone is interested in understanding, it's designed just for like CACs to do environmental reviews. It might not be information we don't already know, but it's only an hour of your life and it's free. So I did circulate that via email. Any other announcements or events?
I wanted to know, does anyone remember when there was an informational meeting about the change in the traffic pattern by the Y?
It did not happen.
It didn't? Okay. Does anyone know the date by any chance?
If you're on Engaged Kingston, it should be right on there. Because we were,
okay.
I think it's 20 something. 20. This is not helpful.
Okay, I'll look it up.
It's the Broadway Grand intersection that if you're there.
Also the Resource Recovery Agency is putting out their draft solid waste management plan, and they are starting more seriously to think about a landfill. So I think that's just something we might want to track a little bit. The location of a landfill would not be in the city of Kingston, but it would affect our environment in the sense that we wouldn't be shipping trash all the way to Seneca Meadows. And there's a solid waste management meeting tomorrow, a solid waste committee meeting tomorrow, led by Manager Green at 6. If anyone's interested, I think you can look it up in the county.
Okay. Any other announcements or events?
This is Michelle Hirsch. The Broadway Grand Street planning meeting is on the 24th at 6:30.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we were on a meeting today, just an internal Engaged Kingston meeting, and it seems like they're going to try to do some pretty cool like mapping and voting and things online with that. So that's something you should definitely try to weigh in on. Any other?
It's exciting to see a hearing be held.
Yep. Any other announcements or events? Complete streets report, Lorraine?
No, they seem to have tabled the meeting for June. I haven't got notification, so I have nothing to report on that. They did reach out to me just today, actually, to ask if I would want to participate in a project panel regarding the sidewalks for Flatbush and so
Foxhall.
I have to look into that further. I'm not sure what's involved with that, but nothing on complete streets right at the moment.
Okay. So Casey will no longer be our planning board liaison. Kevin, you offered to liaise for us, possibly?
Well, right now I can't attend, but I do check the minutes and the agendas. I do that for the Kingston Land Trust already. So that I can do, and I can also be in touch with Suzanne, which I'm in touch with her on other stuff from other boards. So
Great.
for the moment, yeah, change, maybe I can actually physically be there, but for the moment, and when things change, we'll just do it virtually,
Great. Okay, thank you.
if that works.
Is that okay with everybody else?
Sounds great. Thanks,
The
Kevin.
sound is breaking up. Do you want to report? Do you want to report now? I think I just, let me find where I put them. The June Planning Board. Let's see. Oh, yes, wow. 6585 East Strand, special permit renewal with site plan set. I'm gonna have to read this. I haven't read it yet. And I can report back on that.
Great.
Okay, that stands out, but let me see if there's anything else that they have on. Transart on Henry Street, I think that's out of our scope. Open space plan referral, okay, I think we've covered that elsewhere. And they're gonna be finishing up covering that. And that might be, wait a second, Broadway. Oh, then no, right, the radio station, yeah. Radio Kingston. I don't think that's going to affect us. Okay, so I'll follow up on 6585 East Strand and see what's happening there.
Good. All right. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Public safety. Michelle, anything from public safety?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Kevin, any updates from zoning?
No, other than the Future Fruits group, where may submit a proposal on zoning, and I had mentioned this, I think, at the Climate Smart meeting as well, which would be an interim zoning thing based upon what Jennifer Schwartz-Berkey had drafted and fit in the Phase 2 ag report. So I'll follow up with them and we'll get back to you and see where they're going with it.
Great.
They did have one meeting with Kristen Wilson already.
Yep. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Climate Smart. Does Betta or Kevin want to give an update on that?
Minutes. Well, Betta, if you want to start, I have to find the minutes when I did with the.
No, it feels like a long time ago.
Well,
Minutes. Yeah,
the
go
most
ahead.
interesting thing is the climate action plan, right?
Yeah.
So that is, I think, about to really take some shape, and hopefully we'll be engaging the CAC and other members of the community and stakeholders in the near future. Somewhat unclear when exactly, but hopefully this summer. We're going to have the first meeting to present the possibilities for Kingston's climate action plan, the various mitigation and resilience strategies, and then getting feedback from the public and The goal was the goal pushed beyond April 2021, Julie, or is it still April 2021?
It's still April 2021.
Okay, so yeah, that'll be great, but I don't know. Off the top of my head, I can't recall what else we're working on.
There's some advancement with some refrigerants. Dan Smith and Maya Nemisto are working on some refrigerant action and looking to when the application comes out from DEC to apply for that. Funding for understanding where our refrigerant sources are and addressing that. And some updates on other projects, I guess. I don't remember really updates right now that are relevant. Kevin, are you looking at the notes?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. We already covered the open space plan. We covered the future fruits and zoning. Is there anything on sustainability projects that might be, the organics diversion, for example?
We're analyzing the surveys. We're sending out thank yous to businesses that completed them. The analysis of the data is almost complete. And so I still expect that to be done this year. LED hasn't restarted yet, but I expect it to happen soon. Kingston Point Park is starting, so you might be seeing that in the paper coming up soon, with construction coming up soon. I guess that's probably it. Okay, and then EMC, Emily?
Yeah.
Well, we're having pretty short meetings right now, so I don't really have anything to report.
Okay.
I do want to mention though that I somehow managed to be I got on the water quality coordinating committee for Ulster County because as a representative from the EMC, so we meet like every 2 months, and it's a newish committee, so people are trying to figure out what the niche and the role of this water quality coordinating committee is. So, but there was a watershed committee, watershed conference, right, like March 4th or something, and I don't believe, and that was part of that committee's work. And I don't think, well, there were people from the Maritime Museum that attended, but I don't think any of, I think none of us could attend. So anyway, so.
Okay.
And they're also, by the way, interested in the Esopus debris.
Great. And tree commission, I kind of mentioned before that they said our environmental assessment form is in order and that they're going to be endorsing a neg deck. And go ahead, Sebastian.
I had a question for the EMC. Is it possible, I'm trying to think of like more CAC angles on open streets. Other communities with open streets, it increases sales revenue. It's going to increase sales revenue to the county, which would be an economic boom to them. Is there any way to have or try to organize our CAC and other CACs to request that additional money goes into funding like public transit or something?
The additional monies from the economics that come through from, I think at this point, any money that comes through for anything is going to just go to justifying what we already are lost, what we've lost. I don't know.
Yeah.
We can, anything's possible.
Yeah, were you asking to see what the other CACs are doing or if they'd be interested?
Kind of thinking that, Julie had mentioned that Kingston's really going to serve as a model for Ulster County, and that based upon sort of how it gets rolled out here, it might be rolled out in other communities, and trying to think, okay, if there's possibly this thing goes permanent, maybe we get out of the recession in the next year or so, those additional funds to try to ensure that they're allocated to making sure that the transit is free which I think rider fares are a very, very small portion of that anyway. Just trying to think about how to connect the dots between kind of everything, right? You know, it's air pollution, it's transit, it's
Right. I think you and I should just talk. So,
cool.
okay.
Okay, any other reports or updates?
No.
Okay, so the next CAC meeting is going to be July 14th. We haven't been given any guidance. Well, the guidance that we've received most recently is that government offices and our buildings are going to be reopened on around June 22nd, but we're still being advised to be having meetings remotely. So I don't know if that'll change before then, but for now, you'll probably see a note come up with a virtual meeting, and if that changes, you will know otherwise. Since we have fewer people now, it's really important that I know if we have quorum or not. So does anyone know in advance that you're not going to be here on July 14th? Everyone's here? Great.
I hope so.
Okay,
Hope so.
so if there's no other business, we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Second from Lorraine, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 7:13. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Um,